It was a hot afternoon, and the sun was hanging high in the sky when I saw Godwin for the last time. He was lying on the ground, his eyes wide open but empty, like he was waiting for something that would never come. I knew then that the journey he had started, hoping to find a better life, had ended in the desert, far from home, in a place where no one would ever know his name. My name is David, and I was born in a small village in the ancient city of Benin, Edo State, Nigeria. The village was quiet, with little more than a few huts scattered along a dusty path. My family, like many others, was poor. We grew most of our food, cassava, yams, and maize, under the watchful eyes of the elders who had lived there for generations. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Godwin was from my village, too. We grew up together, and I remember how much we loved playing around the village. We would climb the big mango tree at the edge of the village, laughing and teasing each other as we raced to the top. But life was hard for him. His family didn't have much land, and his father, though a kind man, struggled to feed his family. I saw the pain in Godwin's eyes every day, the hunger he felt even when he had eaten. He would smile, but you could tell that smile was hiding something much deeper. One evening, I was sitting under the big tree in the village square when Godwin came to me. His face was serious, more serious than I had ever seen it before. "David," he said, his voice low. "I am leaving. I cannot stay here anymore. I need to find something better." I was shocked. Godwin had always talked about wanting to make something of himself, but I didn't think he would actually leave. "Where will you go?" I asked, my voice shaking. "To Italy," he replied. "I've heard there are chances there. People say if you work hard, you can build a life. I have nothing left here, David. I need to try." It felt like my heart sank into my stomach. Italy. How would he get there? The road was long, and no one from our village had ever made such a journey. It was dangerous. Everyone knew about the desert, the kidnappers, the drowning in the sea. But Godwin's mind was made up. "I have to do it. I'm tired of this life," he said, his voice quiet but determined. The next few days were a blur. Godwin packed his things, just a small bag with clothes and a bit of food, and left the village with only the promise that he would send word when he reached Italy. We all said goodbye, but no one really thought it would be the last time we saw him. He was young, full of hope, and that's what we all saw in his eyes. But the truth is, we didn't know how far the journey would take him or how many people it would break along the way. The journey to Italy was not easy. Godwin told me about it when he wrote his first letter, which came weeks after he left. In the letter, he described how he had to travel through the dense forest, past many small towns, to reach the northern border of Nigeria. There, he found a group of men who promised to take him through the Sahara Desert on a journey that would eventually lead to Libya. From Libya, the plan was to get on a boat to Italy. I remember reading his letter and thinking about how far away all of that was. How did one person travel so far, through so many countries, to find a better life? How did one survive the heat, the hunger, the thirst? It was hard to imagine, but Godwin seemed to be making it. His letters became less frequent, but in each one, he told me that he was doing well. He was alive. He was still going. But that was not the whole truth. After months of waiting, I got another letter from Godwin, but this one was different. It was not a happy letter. It was written in a shaky hand, as if Godwin had written it in fear or in pain. He told me that he had made it to Libya, but the journey had become dangerous. The people who promised to help him across the desert were cruel. They took his money, promised him safety, but the journey through the desert was nothing like he expected. The sun was unforgiving, and the sandstorms would come without warning. Food and water were scarce, and many of the people he traveled with had already given up. "I've seen death, David," the letter said. "I've seen people who could not go on, who fell by the wayside, who died in the desert. It is not like they told us. I thought we would be safe, but now I know there is no safety here. I just want to reach Italy. I have to. I cannot go back." Reading those words broke me. I thought of the boy I had known, the one who played in the village with no care in the world, and now he was in the middle of a desert, fighting for his life. What had happened to the world where people cared for each other, where children didn't have to go on such journeys just to survive? I waited for another letter, but it never came. Weeks turned into months. The village became quiet without Godwin. I still remember how his mother would sit by the entrance of their hut, waiting, hoping for news. But there was none. Each day, I would walk to the edge of the village, looking out into the distance, as if somehow I could see him returning, walking through the dust, with his smile back on his face. But then, the news came. It wasn't a letter. It was a man who came from a neighboring village. He had been traveling along the route that Godwin had taken. He had crossed paths with him, but he didn't have good news. The desert, it took him, the man said softly. Godwin was one of many who didn't make it. He fell ill, and then the others, they had to leave him behind. It was too late. The words hit me like a stone to the chest. I couldn't breathe. Godwin, my friend, my brother, was gone. I never told anyone in the village the full story. How Godwin had fallen in the desert, how he had fought for his life, how he had hoped to reach Italy only to die in a place where no one would know his name. But I knew the truth. The desert, with its endless heat and its dry winds, had taken him. Sometimes, when the sun sets and the village is still, I can hear Godwin's voice calling out to me. It's a memory, a whisper in the wind. I wish I could have told him that I believed in him. That I knew he was strong enough to survive. But I was wrong. The world is not always kind. And sometimes, no matter how hard we try, we can't escape the forces that are bigger than us. I never forgot Godwin. And I never will. His journey, his struggle, and his hope are with me every day. And I carry his memory as a reminder of the price of dreams and the harshness of the world. But I also carry a promise to tell his story. To remember him. Because in a world where so many dreams are lost, some must still be told. And Godwin's dream, though it ended in the desert, was a dream worth remembering. But as I sit here, thinking of Godwin, I wonder, why did he go? What made him leave the village, his family, and all that he knew? Was it really the promise of a better life in Italy, or was it the crushing weight of hopelessness that made him believe that there was no other way out? In our village, we often hear stories of those who leave. Some make it. They come back with stories of great success, of jobs in foreign lands, of riches that seem impossible. But for every one of them, there are many more who never return. There are those who fall sick in foreign lands, who die in deserts, or who never reach their destination at all. They are the forgotten ones. The ones who took the journey, hoping for something better, but whose lives were taken by the road. The truth is, Godwin didn't die because he was weak. He didn't die because he didn't try hard enough. He died because the road was unforgiving. He died because he believed in something bigger than the small village we called home, but that something didn't care about him. The desert didn't care about his dreams, his hopes, or the love his mother had for him. It just took him, like it had taken so many others before him. And so, I end this story not with an answer, but with a question: how far would you go for a dream? Would you go to the ends of the earth, even if you knew the road was hard? Would you risk everything, just to find something better? I don't know the answer. But I do know one thing: Godwin tried. And that, in itself, is a story worth telling. Because sometimes, it's not the end that matters, but the courage to start the journey in the first place. As I sit by the fire in the evenings now, I often think about Godwin and his journey. The village is quieter without him, the laughter and dreams we shared now just memories in the desert. His story, the one filled with hope and heartache, is still something that weighs on me, and I find myself telling it to anyone who will listen. You see, the tragedy of Godwin's story isn't just that he died far from home, in a place where no one cared. It's that there are so many others like him. So many who feel like the only way out of poverty, the only way to escape the suffering of everyday life, is to take that dangerous road, even when they know it's a path that leads to nothing but uncertainty. It's not just about Godwin, it's about a dream that so many young people share. A dream to escape, to have a chance, to be seen. But why do they leave? What is it that makes someone look at their home, at the familiar, and decide that it's not enough? For Godwin, it was the deep sense of not belonging to the life that was around him. He loved his family. He loved the village, despite all the struggles. But the endless cycle of hunger, the long seasons without enough food, and the constant worry of not knowing what tomorrow would bring, it wore him down. I knew he felt trapped. I knew that when he looked at the elders in the village, he didn't want that for himself. He wanted more. He dreamed of a place where he didn't have to be scared of waking up to find his family with nothing to eat. He wanted to see the world, to walk, to be free of the weight of poverty. And the stories. The stories were everywhere. Tales of riches in distant lands. The men who had returned from Europe, from Libya, from all over, with new clothes, new ways of speaking, and money that made their families proud. They would come back to the village after months, sometimes years, and they would speak of Italy, of the wonderful things they had seen, of the work they had done. For many, those stories were enough to fill their hearts with hope. Italy seemed like a land of promises. They told of cities with tall buildings, of jobs where people didn't have to fight for every meal. That was the dream Godwin held in his heart. But when he left, he had no idea what awaited him. The journey wasn't just about reaching a distant place, it was a journey that took away his innocence. Along the way, Godwin learned that the world wasn't kind, that promises weren't always kept, and that hope could turn into desperation in a matter of days. He never told us how many people died with him in the desert, but when he spoke of it in his last letter, he said the journey became more about survival than about finding a new life. The heat of the desert burned everything, including his spirit. He talked about how the sandstorms would whip around them, swallowing everything in sight, how the days blurred into one long stretch of exhaustion. Food was a distant memory, and water had to be rationed. Sometimes, he wrote, "It feels like my body is ready to give up, but my mind won't let me. It tells me that I must keep going. I must see Italy. I must do this for everyone who stayed behind." I couldn't imagine what that must have felt like, being so close to death, feeling your body betray you, but still having a mind that clung to the hope of a dream that seemed so far away. But that was Godwin. He never gave up, not even when the world seemed to want him to. It's funny, really, how sometimes we don't appreciate what we have until it's gone. Now, I find myself missing the simplest things, the sound of Godwin's voice, the way he used to laugh when we would play football with a worn-out ball. I never thought I would miss those days. I never thought I would miss the struggle, the hard work that seemed endless, because in my mind, it was all part of our world. But after Godwin left, I started to see things differently. Maybe it's because I realized that no matter how much we try to run from the life we are given, no matter how far we go, the truth is always with us. The hunger, the pain, the dreams we have of something better, they stay with us, no matter how much we want to escape. And when we reach the end of our journey, if we make it at all, we find that the thing we were searching for was inside us all along. I don't know if Godwin ever found that. I don't know if he ever realized that, sometimes, the greatest gift is learning to live with what you have. But his story, his dream, will stay with me forever. He wasn't just trying to escape, he was trying to find a place where he belonged. He was trying to find a life worth living. And in some ways, he did. He found a life that mattered, even if that life was too short. I heard stories from others who made it to Libya, some who made it to Italy. I heard that they were often trapped in the hands of smugglers who took their money and left them in camps, waiting to board unsafe boats, crossing the Mediterranean in hopes of a better life. And I heard stories about the lives that were lost in that journey, people who fell victim to storms, to hunger, to sickness, to boats that sank in the middle of the sea. It made me wonder if anyone ever truly made it. Was it worth it? Was it worth the risk, the pain, the years of waiting, just to reach a land that promised a better life but often turned out to be just as hard, if not harder, than the life they had left behind? But still, people live. They leave our village, just as Godwin did, and others make the same decision, each of them hoping that somehow their story will be different. They believe in something, some promise, some glimmer of hope that this time, they will be the one who survives. They live with nothing but a dream, a desire for a better future, and a deep hope that it's enough. As for me, I carry Godwin's story with me. I carry it in my heart, and I tell it to everyone who will listen. I tell them of his journey, of his courage, and of the price he paid for his dream. I hope that through his story, others will understand that sometimes the dreams we chase can cost us more than we are ready to pay. And I hope that, somehow, the world will listen. That the world will hear the stories of people like Godwin who risk everything for a better life, and that maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to make those dreams come true without so much pain and loss. But for now, all I can do is remember. I remember the boy who wanted more, the boy who left, and the boy who, in the end, never came back. That is the story of Godwin, my friend, my brother, the one who dreamed too big and paid the ultimate price.